Yo, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Most Low Budget Movie Reviews. I am your host, Clarence. Thank you for tuning in. In today's episode, I have a movie that opened up in theaters this weekend called Mercy, starring Chris Pratt, and is listed as a sci-fi mystery thriller, but it's a crime drama as well. Now, the setup kind of reminds me a little bit of that Tom Cruise movie from back in the day. We'll see how closely it mirrors that, but what is this one about? Now, it's set in the future where crime is running rampant and everything's just out of control. So much so they've created these red zones where they try to contain the criminal element. They want to punish people more efficiently and, faster. So they created something called Mercy Court. Now, once you're captured, you go before this AI judge that presides over your case. You start out with a certain percentage of guilt that's over 92%. You have to present evidence to prove your innocence and get below that 92% threshold within a 90-minute time frame. Every device is government mandated to be connected to this system so the court can access everything to help you prove your case. It's all uploaded to this cloud system. If you fail to get below that 92% threshold, you're executed at the end of that 90-minute time frame. So basically, you're guilty until you prove your innocence. In this case, a detective who, was an early adapter who sent the first man to this court is on trial for killing his wife. And you know what? That's actually where I'm going to stop, because that's pretty much the movie. Once he comes to grips with the situation, he has, the system at his disposal to complete the investigation. All the evidence, clearly points to him. Will he be able to find the evidence to get below that 92% threshold and find out who killed his wife? So what did the pros think? Well, they came in at a 20% on 114 reviews, with the audience at an 81% on over 100 ratings on the Rotten scale. So there's huge disconnect there, but what did I think? Well, let's start with the positives. And after we get past that exposition dump, that, then it starts pretty briskly. They go over the rules and then the clock just starts. It takes him a minute to, get his head around the situation, which came off as, pretty authentic for what was going on. I mean, the first part of this investigation is pretty solid, and the movie itself is not terrible overall. I'm not really going over too much because it's pretty straightforward stuff. I'll give it some credit for a little bit of twist at the end. And I'll explain that in a minute, but things start to get a little ridiculous, and I just couldn't ignore it anymore, so that's where my negatives start. So, first off, the setup pretty much gives everything away. I mean, just going into the movie before you even watch it. We know going in, this is going to be a referendum on AI, automation, Big Brother watching your every move. They really beat you over the head with that messaging. Now, why would the person on trial be forced to sit through a commercial about the Mercy Court, which is what the exposition dump was, which I get it. They needed the audience to know what's going on, but they needed to write it better to integrate that into the story. Because it doesn't make any sense why the person on trial would have to watch that commercial. Wouldn't all of that have been done already before they even put you in the chair? And the whole point is to prove your innocence, right? So wouldn't the clock start when it's time for you to present your portion of the case? It wouldn't start with a rehashing of the events that got you there. If there is a recap that's needed, they would have done all of that before you actually started to present your part of the case, right? I mean, then we get to the AI judge itself, which is supposed to be based on the facts, just the facts only. But somehow, towards the end, when the plot needs it, it makes emotional decisions. They establish what its programming can and can't do. So I kind of excuse some of the parts early on, like where the AI was giving him help and doing things it didn't ask to, point him in the right direction. But when it made some of those decisions later on in his favor, clearly based on feelings, it's not even supposed to have. I kind of checked out at that point. I said, okay, they're just writing this and making it work however they want it to work. They're not even abiding by their own rules that they set up at the beginning. This supposedly smart system had some pretty glaring flaws. I mean, that's just obvious. So obvious after he eliminated the first suspect of who the killer was. The connection was a stretch at best. Considering the investigation in total, I really can't get into it. I got to stay spoiler free here. But let's just say there is no way this information, with literally everything being connected, the police didn't figure this whole situation out a little bit sooner. And the small twist I mentioned earlier has to do with another case that actually went into the whole Mercy situation, which you already know the outcome of that. It wasn't correct just based on the way the story is going and the messaging and all of that. You just don't know what they actually did. You pretty much know who does what in this movie. It's pretty clear, at least to me it was. I mean, I could go on and on, but I don't want to beat this one up too much. No, I really didn't enjoy this one all that much. I mean, it's not terrible. I put this one right at a 50% to stay consistent on the rotten scale. But let me add this, because I understand the score. Somebody like me that watches a lot of movies, looks at the structure, the story, and how everything gets put together, and it kind of builds to either me liking something or understanding something, or it builds to me kind of picking it apart like I did with today's movie. If you just want to watch a movie and turn your brain completely off and turn off all the logic and just watch it, you're going to enjoy this one a lot more than I did. And I think that's where a lot of those high scores come from. But again, if you're someone that cares about the structure, it had potential. I mean, but the writing here was just so flawed, I just couldn't ignore it, and it just made me pick it apart. Minority Report, that's the movie I'm thinking about. The Tom Cruise movie I was thinking about. Minority Report dealt with something similar, with a system that actually, it was future crimes in that movie though, and they already had everything but you were going to do, and they had it played out, and that system was flawed as well. But Minority Report's a much older movie. The acting is much better. The story is so much more complex and integrated, and it even looks better to be so much older, which is crazy to me. If you're interested in that kind of a movie, I'd say watch that one instead if you haven't seen it. But yeah, this one you can definitely skip or wait for it to stream. This is not a full price movie. With that being said, I'll close it out right here. If this is your first time, don't make it your last. This has been a Podbean production, mostly low-budget movie reviews with Clarence. Thanks for support. I appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. And yes, I will be back again with another review. There's a horror movie that came out this weekend, but I am going to be doing a YouTube video on that one if you want to see a little visual review. So definitely, it won't be here. So you're going to have to go ahead and subscribe over there on my YouTube channel, Low Budget Movie Reviews with Clarence, if you want to get that review. I also have a commentary video coming out. This it might be considered a little controversial. I don't dive too deeply into controversial things. I'm over here about positivity and entertainment, but this particular topic, it does deal with, movies and topics and subjects, and I am expanding my content a little bit, so definitely be on the lookout of that. Again, that's going to be a video over on the YouTube channel, so again, go over there and check that out, please. I appreciate it. Go over there, like, share, subscribe, and all of that good stuff, and I would definitely appreciate that. But anyway, thank you once again. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.